Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe, and you're checking out Weekend at Gabe's, and thanks for checking out this latest episode. While you're here, also follow us on these social medias at Weekend Gabe, at Weekend at Gabe's, and also at The Real Sam Crane. Thanks for checking us out.
Joining us now in the green room, right on time, by the way, one of the most fantastic voices of our time, who's bridging jazz, soul, R&B, all types of melodies, and concocting a fresh batch of cocktails for your digestion and your eardrum. It's a pleasure to introduce Nora Mae to the show. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Oh, I love all of the sound effects. You guys are cracking me up. I was listening beforehand. It's great to be here with you. Couldn't think of a better way to spend an evening.
Are you going to go get some mic bites? That's the question. My first question out the gate.
So when I saw the picture and the piece missing, it took me a second to locate on the ear where the mic bite would be. And then when you showed the photo, I was like, where does that piece go? And the second I thought that, Sam asked the question. I was like, someone had to do it. Someone had to ask it. Yeah, I might be in the market for a mic bite or two. I don't know. I just feel like I need to know. I need to try.
Mike snippets. I'm telling you, man. Just like have an adjacent accompanying bag of Mike bites and Mike snippets.
I think Mike Nibbles.
Same.
Mike Nibbles is where it should be.
Oh, okay. It's a rebrand. Listen,
We
if anyone on the marketing team needs people's help, you guys are there.
Thank you.
We're with it. We appreciate you joining us here on Weekend at Gabe's. Rebrand. Great segue into my first question. You were going by Rachel Shapiro or Rachel Shapp, and now we're getting this rebrand or this reintroduction as Nora Mae. What inspired that? What happened that you felt that you had to reintroduce yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so many things, but really what happened was, in the pre-COVID times, BC, before COVID.
Good shot.
So in pre-COVID, I was releasing music under my name and under my nickname, so just Rachel Shapps, and it was fun music. I still love the music that we put out, but it was very much trying to be another someone else. It was always trying to be like somebody who was already out there making music. I was working with a lot of new people, still discovering myself, my sound, and went through a lot of evolution pre-COVID. Then during COVID, everything shuts down and you have nothing to do but sit and reflect and take time. And I was doing Zoom session after Zoom session and still trying to put things together for Rachel Shapps, and it got so depleting. I was so uninspired from writing, and so I took a few months off and started just reconnecting with the music that I really love and that I was gravitating towards and doing some really deep diving. And I called it my quarantine Eat, Pray, Love, even though I didn't leave the house. So it was an Eat, Pray, Love in my kitchen and in my living room and in my backyard. but it counts. And I started working on music with some new people that I had known but had never worked with before, and had this really, really solid, cohesive idea of what I wanted the music to be. And then when I listened back to it, as silly as it sounded, it was like, Rachel Shapps is not cool enough to sing this song. Like, she just isn't. And it didn't fit. It didn't sound right. And because I knew the music that Rachel Shapps was creating, this felt like a totally different entity. It felt like it needed to be its own thing because I didn't want it to be an evolution. I wanted to be a fresh start. So my middle name is Nora, and my grandma's middle name was Mae, who was also a performer. And I've actually, when I was younger, went by Rachel Nora Mae in several different, instances if I didn't want to use my full name. So I had already loved the way it flowed together, and it wasn't such a foreign name to me. But, dropping the Rachel was interesting because now people, are calling me Nora or Nora Mae. And I'm like, me? Like, but I'm used to it now. It took a minute though, but now like I'll answer to either immediately. But yeah, it just felt like when I listened to the music, Yes, Nora Mae could sing that song. Like, this sounds like, if you were to say who sings that song, oh, Nora Mae, it just made sense. I was like, yeah, of course she would. She would sing that song.
Is that something that you're finding? You spoke about people, referring to you as Nora now or Nora Mae. We've had a couple artists on the show the past couple of weeks talk about how, the difference between them the human versus them the artist, and that border being there physically is really important. Have you found that? Are you developing that as like Nora Mae is this superhero? Like,
yes, truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel, honestly. I feel like there's a really good space that I get to take from it now. Rachel is probably on her couch or hanging out with her dog or being a recluse and not leaving the house for like 6 months. And Nora Mae is the version of me in my fantastical imagination. If I had to cast myself in a movie that was a caricature of the life that I would imagine, that is the Nora Mae. So the fact that I get to she's almost like a character that I get to play and to be a caricature of aspects of myself, but then I get to, decompress from that and have some space from it. And, I'll know when I'm with my friends, I'll know if they're calling me Rachel, like I know the version of me that they're talking to. And if they're calling me Nora, I know the version of me that they're talking to. So it has been really nice to have that wall, that separation, that border between, am I playing a part? Am I being totally myself? And not that I think that Nora Mae, I guess the way I think of that is like a square and a rectangle, where a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle can't be a square. Like Rachel can be Nora Mae, but Nora Mae cannot be Rachel. And I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that definition. I've noticed among doing our research on you that interviewers love to beat you to death with questions about your grandmother. So I would not like to do that, but I do think it's part of the story. So we should touch on it. Your grandmother, obviously, Eartha Kitt, incredible person, human being. You see Eartha Kitt everywhere. Her impact is not measurable. Do you get tired of that?
No, honestly. If actually, what's funny, if I may, I'm home right now visiting my family, and I am literally sitting in my grandmother's chair.
Wow. Hell yeah.
And it's and I'm sitting, my computer right now is resting on top of her piano that she left for me. So like this, she's in everything that I do, and I never get tired of it because I think that it's such a special part of the story, and a part that no one else really gets to have. I like it because I feel like if I felt like it was my only reason that people were, engaging with me and the music, that then it would feel tiring. But because I feel confident about myself and as an artist and where I've kind of my own seat at the table, and that it just gets to be a fun part of it, it never bothers me. I always think it's so cool. People always have the greatest reactions or stories of times they've heard, Santa Baby, or when they first watched Holes. And I love hearing those things because, it keeps her memory alive. And especially since she's really only known, by name in the older generations, unless you know who sings Santa Baby. But a lot of the younger generations don't know her as well. They might recognize her if you said a few of her credits, but I like that it keeps her alive and in the zeitgeist and talked about, because I think that her impact was so important beyond just the art and the music and the roles that she played. So I never get tired of it. I love it. She's cool. Like, why wouldn't I have street cred? Like, I just get cool legitimacy from it.
No, I love that.
Well, one of the things that when I were doing some background on you, Nora, was that you had mentioned that you were trying to coach her to sing harmonies, and it was just like something that she was just like kind of like just couldn't really bring herself to get into her to do.
She could never get it. Yeah, I have such a visceral memory of that. When I must have been 7 years old, and my grandma scheduled an appointment with me, like literally through my mom, like scheduled an
That's
appointment. I mean,
hilarious.
she lived 4 minutes away from us, but mind you, and I saw her every single day. I saw her every day. She did not need to make an appointment with me, but she wanted it as an appointment. And one of the things when I was really young that she realized that I could do very young, sort of like my gift was pick up on harmonies. I hear them really quickly. And so I went over to her house and we tried with For Good from Wicked with uh,
Mm.
Glenda and Elphaba. And I think I was supposed to be Elphaba or vice versa, but she would just ask me how to do it, and I would sing the harmony part. So, and she would sing the harmony part back to me, and then I would try and sing the melody underneath with her doing the harmony, and she was like, "I can't do it. Nope, not gonna work." And we tried that for a while, and I just she could never get it. But it was funny because like she's so gifted. It's funny what each person's little gifts are within the art of the gift. So it was just funny. Yeah, I was like 7. She was like, "Teach me, you know the
Yeah.
ways."
So she's
Oh, go
oh hang
ahead. Go
on.
ahead, Gabe.
So obviously she's physically part of your DNA, but like your musical DNA, how much? Because it seemed like she was aware of your singing and encouraging, but it was almost kind of like it feels like your story is a lot of self motivation, of self training, self learning. So how much of her DNA as an entertainer, as a singer, is part of your construction of your artistry?
Oh, I'm sure so much of it, and unconsciously so much of it, because I never really actively tried to model anything after her. I think it was
Right.
more, and she is very much like this, where it was more of setting an example and everything that she did. She really just wanted to let people watch and pick up things that they wanted, whether it was like even in the way that she was in her philanthropy and her activism. It was more about how she acted that she hoped people would follow suit if they felt called to. And as a performer, I feel that way with me. I think when she probably knew very young, when I was very young, that it was something that I would love and probably had no clue it would be something that I pursued professionally. But
Right.
you see the signs, and I think that the way she went about it was so great that she didn't try and force it down my throat. She just let it be something that I watched and was so infatuated with that I came to it on my own. And then she
Mhm.
was really supportive. And when she would perform and the way she also had, it was Eartha Mae, was her at home gardening and composting, was truly all she did. And then Eartha Kitt, who, when she was performing on stage, and she's this like, this sex kitten and this really fiery, sultry character, which is so not how she was in her personal life. But I think, as I've gotten older and discovered more of myself as an artist and as a person, little things like that have seeped in. And so even the way that she is, where when she's performing, she's so powerful, but she's so laid back about it, is really how
Right.
I wanted to sort of portray the like sensuality and the sexiness, but without being, overt and really, over the top. I wanted it to be alluded to, but nothing
Sure.
too much. And so little things like that have seeped in more and more. She definitely knew she was planting the seeds, but she wasn't doing it, so she was, guiding with a light hand.
Right.
No, I love that. Last question here before we move on to the new single. But I noticed that when we were going through the interviews, there were so many questions about Eartha Kitt from the perspective of how the interviewer felt about Eartha Kitt. But
Hmm.
what stood out to me was the story of the learning the makeup, and I feel it's so interesting that you are in the makeup
Yeah.
chair. I
Yeah,
I
that is sweet.
I wonder what more can you tell us about the person, your grandmother, that you remember beyond whatever I might have conceptualized about the woman.
Yeah, she was such a simple person in that she really loved spending time on her own with her dogs, living sort of as a recluse, which I have become more and more and more and more like her every single year. And that is truly what I found myself doing in COVID when I felt, my most myself to come to this place. But she was really down to earth. I mean, when my mom was growing up, they would wake up at the crack of dawn, and she would go. They when she was living in Beverly Hills as a kid, my grandma would go take her to the beach and she would run with ankle weights on barefoot at like 4 in the morning before anyone got there. Because she loved to feel really grounded with the earth and feel part of it. She loved being active and fit because it helped her mental health. And she was doing, she's been doing like yoga since before yoga was trendy and cool.
Sure.
And so she was just like, she had very simple pleasures. And I think that it's so funny that her character was, so lavish and jewels and diamonds and fancy and elite. And she really, I mean, when she would take her wig off and she was in her house, she'd be in, sweats and uh, with her dogs gardening. All she spent money on was plants, was gardening and gardening, and like antiques. Like she loved antiquing, and her house was covered in the strangest decor you've ever seen. But it was so cool and eclectic because she was so cool and eclectic. And yeah, she just really loved like being outdoors and being part of nature. And I think that's something that's so funny because it's so not her character.
Sure. So let's get into the new record. I think that what I loved about the record itself, of the romantic aspect of it, and I know that you often or cite yourself as being a hopeless romantic, and you're always trying to look for something that's there, even if it isn't there. You're trying to find things, and I love that about you. But do you kind of feel like with this approach that you're filling a void? Because Sam knows that I am a snob when it comes to like R&B soul, so to speak. And when that label is applied and I hear like rap drums and someone just sort of singing on top of the rap drums, I'm like, that's cool, but that's not really what the vibe is. And your approach, and you've mentioned this as using more instrumentation and sometimes even stripping it down to a minimalism to just hearing the vocal and letting that be an instrument in itself. That's refreshing to hear. So do you feel like when you were crafting your records, like this is a void or this is something that I'm not hearing that could be its own thing?
Yeah, kind of. And I think that it obviously, it's weird because we're living in such a world right now where there's so much genre bending happening. So, like, pop music really is all encompassing at this point because it's just what's popular. And there's music that's like top 40 kind of dance pop that feels very mainstream pop. But then there's also pop that's, the Billie Eilish pop. This is kind of more alternative indie stripped back, but really funky, like different uh, production. So
Hmm.
I think it's filling a void because I don't hear anything on the radio that necessarily sounds like it. But I do feel like it's it's sort of just taking its place among what so many other things. Like it's not like it stands out as a totally different genre, but
Mm.
it gets to be its own little independent sound for now.
Sure.
And who knows if other people will end up adapting it. But I mean, I've been writing some of the songs that'll come out after the EP are fully bossa nova songs, like full bossa nova. So I don't know. Sometimes I'm doing crazy things and I'm like, who's making bossa nova music right now? This is crazy. So so in that sense, I do feel like it fills a little bit of a void. The one void I do feel like it has the potential to fill is where I feel like a lot of the mainstream pop that's out is very geared toward younger crowds, but is applied, old people as they're older still like those songs. I feel
Sure.
like my music is almost the opposite, where it's actually geared toward a more mature crowd, the 25 to the 45-year-olds
Mm.
instead of the 16 to the 23-year-olds, but it can still be, that the 20-year-olds like it and that the 60-year-olds like it, where I
Right.
think that that's not something that's on the radio as much that I hear.
Hmm.
No, I love that. And let's talk about the creation process here. We had Love Alexa on the show the other night. And I know that she was a huge part of these Zoom sessions that you guys were getting down. 10 hours Zoom sessions, might I freaking add, and I'm going to give you this one. Bruh. Yes. Too much. Talk about that
Yeah.
process and creating over the internet, which I mean, obviously was new for everybody, but it's something different when you're creating music.
Yeah, it's something so different. But the process was, well, like I said, I was doing a bunch of Zoom sessions when COVID first started. And after about 3, 4 hours on Zoom, especially if you're not psyched about the song and it was early on, no one knows what's happening. It's so much frustration and uncertainty. By like 3, 4 hours in, you kind of all hit a wall. Everyone looks at each other and they're like, I'm kind of hungry. I'm kind of tired. Is this song really worth it? Let's circle back maybe in a couple weeks. And if we finish it, we finish it. Maybe we start something new. And I was getting so tired of doing that that I was really hesitant to get back into doing Zoom sessions. But obviously, COVID was not going anywhere at the time where I was really ready to start creating again. So it was just about finding the right dynamic and the right people to work with. I have worked with Alexa before, we've written together, and we had been chatting over the course of COVID. And I had mentioned to her that I was in a rut creatively. I think she and a lot of people were. So we, commiserated on that. And then as I was finding myself and through the months of talking it out and just as friends chatting about it and, as creators, I talked to her about how I felt like I really found the sound that I wanted to go for and the direction I wanted to go for. And it was her idea to bring Mark Evans in, who ended up being the producer on the project. And she's worked with Mark a ton and was like,
Mhm.
this is his jam. He will love to make this kind of music that you're talking about, and I think he'll be really passionate about the project. And we've been wanting to work together anyway. Mark and I had known of each other, but we had never worked together before, and we had never met each other before, which is crazy because we worked together for over a year over Zoom, and then we finally met in person when I came back to LA, and we were like, I've talked to you every single day, and I can't believe it's our first time sitting in a room together. It was so
Right.
crazy. But yeah, we got on Zoom that first day and kind of all like, shot the shit and got to know each other a little better, all three of us together. I talked us through what I was envisioning for the project, my some of my references and how came to this decision and to this place. And it just felt seamless. I think it was just right place, right people, right time, or whatever the recipe was for success. But we started, Mark started tooling around on the guitar and it was two chords and it was Rendezvous eventually. And we were just like, yes, everyone just got it. It clicked. And we started writing out the lyrics and everyone was really excited about it that we just couldn't stop. Like if we're on a roll like this, we can't stop. I was on the East Coast. They were in LA, so they were in the room together and I was
Mhm.
over Zoom. And I mean, we were writing it and recording vocals at the same time, which we never do. There's usually like a separate vocal session after we've written. But we were just like, we couldn't be stopped. We were like, oh, get that down. Like, you have to record it. I had my mic, go, send it, export. And then at one point, I was like, okay, we're not done. We're going to work on this truly all night, but I am going to take you guys up to bed and I'm going to get ready for bed. And then we're just going to keep working while I'm laying in bed. And I had my computer next to me as I'm washing my face and brushing my teeth and they're like doing production stuff. I'm literally like brushing my teeth, like, and, and then, yeah, I laid in bed until probably 2 or 3 a.m. my time, and we were still working and doing production stuff. And my dog is passed out on my lap while we're working, and we just couldn't stop. It was so much fun, and the song felt so special that we didn't really want to hang up. And then afterwards, we just listened to it a bunch of times before we were like, okay, you know what? Maybe everyone go to sleep, and we'll revisit this tomorrow. And then from then on, we just started making consistent sessions over Zoom. I mean, Rendezvous was literally done that day. We
Yeah.
we revisited a few times different um, edits production wise, and then
Sure.
doing comping vocals and stuff. But that day, like it was a finished song. I had the demo next day, and honestly, the original demo does not sound that different from the final product that we got
Mm.
that
Mm.
we mastered and put on. So it's really crazy that we were able to get all that done in the first session. I think that's how we knew like this is something special and we have something here to build on. And from then on, we just kept building out more sessions. We have had consistent sessions ever since then, just trying to create new music and hopefully have enough for a full-length album next year or something like that. So
Hell yeah, hell yeah. I want to talk about the album or the EP that's coming out very soon. But first, I want to talk about the aesthetic that comes alongside Rendezvous. I saw you say in another interview that you wanted it to feel like you're in the back of a jazz club smoking a cigarette and you lock eyes with a stranger. But I noticed that, going through your photos, shots by Shaps, but also Rachel Shaps and Nora Mae, sort of this aesthetic that goes throughout everything, sort of retro, granular photos, that sort of thing. Where does that inspiration come from? Do you attribute that to just the era of your grandmother, or is it just something else?
yeah, it's kind of a mix of everything. I think that aesthetically, I love the really like vintage retro vibe, for lack of a better word. I love film photography. Um, there's, I think, a presence to it that and that captures such a moment that we lose with a little more of digital and like iPhone photos and that still take spectacular photos. Like I am so aware that the camera on my phone is probably the best camera I've ever had or will ever
Right.
have. But
Right.
I I think that it's so special because it really feels like a nostalgia when you look at it.
Hmm.
And that's how I wanted the music to feel. That's how I like to feel. I love rewatching the same movies over and over again that I know I love. I love
Yeah.
watching, I mean, I'm obsessed with film, so I love watching new movies too. But I just really love the idea of nostalgia and invoking more of the playful sides that I think we lose as we get older, like that inner child sort of that stays with us, and that playfulness, that uh, th- the silliness, but the sultriness, discovering yourself. And I think that I love how that fits in the aesthetic of keeping things feeling very vintage and retro,
Yeah.
almost of another time, because that sort of feels like how I am. And my dad, my everyone I know makes fun of me because they're like, "You are 85 years old." My dad calls me 103. He's like, "You are the oldest woman I've ever met." I mean, truly, in COVID, it really became clear to me why people have said that for so long. I mean, even when I was born, my mom was like, "This is not this girl's first time around this girl's first rodeo. She is an old soul." I think I've just always had this fascination, and I know so many of us do. We're like, "Oh, I wish I was born in another time." Like, it's not a new
Sure.
thing. And so many people think that and say that, but I really do feel this nostalgia for a time that I wasn't even born for, which feels very strange. And so, because I get to create music and live in a fake world, for lack of a better word, may as well make it the world and the time that I felt like I was, meant to be in or belong in, and let it live today, but have it hark back to that and get to live out my wildest fantasy of being then and there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about your spirituality. You often cite this in a lot of your interviews, and you refer to yourself as the moon child, which is a
Hmm.
person born under the zodiacal sign of Cancer. So I pulled this from the interwebs. You tell me if this is true or not. Cancers wear their hearts on their sleeves, but they have a range of emotions going on inside, which can at times make them seem overly sentimental or moody. This is due to their connection to the moon phases and why cancers are sometimes called crabby. Is this a
Oh,
pretty accurate description?
absolutely. Yeah, that very, very. I think that it's funny because I've always identified with my sun sign as a Cancer, and I wish I wasn't wearing this. I do have Moonchild tattooed on my inner arm, but Moonchild is going to be the title of the EP, and no one noticed that I really did
Hold
this,
on.
but
Sorry, I gotta throw the siren because
It's
we do Weekend
exclusive.
at Games exclusives. If we get some exclusive
Ooh,
information, we
I
gotta throw
know.
the
Yeah,
siren.
yeah.
All right.
Exclusive. Moonchild is going to be the title of the EP, and no one even noticed that I did this. But Rendezvous and the Moonchild EP. Rendezvous came out on the full moon, and I think that I'm going to have the whole EP drop. I was really trying to have it come out in Cancer season, like on the Cancer full moon, because that'd be so crazy. But we'll see how timing aligns. But I do really try and play up the moon phases because I do feel like I like subconsciously also play up with the moon phases.
Yeah.
I totally feel a connection to it. Um, I do sometimes get moody. I don't think I come across, I don't take it out on other people. I've gotten good at compartmentalizing and being able to handle it myself, but I know myself, and my spectrum of emotions will go from 0 to 100 throughout the day 3 times. And I could start the day hysterically crying for truly no reason and just end the day like on a high, being the best, like my happiest self. And actually, there's literally a line in Moonchild, the song, because that will be the intro track, also exclusive, of, of and in the
Sorry.
in the in the chorus, it literally is like, I've had a whole lot of mood swings lately because it's all about just like the inner workings of my brain during a very emotional time. Uh, but yeah, I do feel very aligned with that definition of Cancer.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
One of the other things that was brought up about your spirituality was this power animal. Am I saying that right? Power companion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my
with
power
the
animal
moth.
ally.
And I found that this morning, and I thought to myself, that's crazy because I also feel a very strong connection to moths. I think they're very cool, misunderstood, beautiful creatures. So and I saw in another interview that you mentioned that mothballs remind you of your grandmother, that smell.
Yes.
So how do you, I don't know, how do you attribute that reading that came in without regurgitating too much of the information that's already out there? But like, do you still feel that, is that still happening for you? Do you still feel that connection to moths, and you've seen them everywhere?
do. I still see them all the time, not nearly as much as I was during the time when I got the tattoo and when I wrote the song, Moth Drawn to a Flame, but I still love this tattoo so much. Again, long sleeves was a wrong idea when you have 5 tattoos that all have to do with your music, but my moth tattoo is still one of my favorite ones. Also, fun fact, the moth that I have is a Luna moth, so Luna, the, Spanish word for moon. So the moth, really, I still feel a kinship to, because not only just the animal itself, and how I do also believe that they're really beautiful and misunderstood. And of course, everyone's first thing when they see my tattoos, I love your butterfly tattoo. I'm like, really? but
Thanks.
but
That's a quick
I'm
way
like,
to make the
really?
Cancer moody. You know what I mean? That is a quick way.
Truly. But I love it because it feels like such a great reminder, especially in this music industry where, moths are so misunderstood, and people are like, they're so dumb because they get drawn to the light, flickering. And really, it's just a perfect example of how we as people are drawn to people and experiences and opportunity that seem so bright and flickery and shiny at the time, but we can often find ourselves getting burned by jumping in too quickly. And I, as a hopeless romantic and as an impulsive person, have felt that many a time. So I really love having it on me, and probably, hopefully, will forever, because I have it forever, so it doesn't really matter. I love having it. I love having it and looking down and feeling the reminder of just like not to get blinded by brightness and like beautiful shiny things and beautiful brightness, because it's not always it's not always like, sometimes it can burn you. And I still feel a real kinship to that.
Gabe, you want to ask the Chicago question? We're running out of time here.
Yeah, we're going to run through some fun questions before we wrap
Okay,
up with you,
amazing.
Nora. All right, so you spent about 7 months in Chicago in 2018. I think you were at an ad agency. Is that correct? Or you're doing some work?
I was working at a what's it called? I've been out of work for a while. I like a technical recruiting company. Like, I was recruiting. It
Sweet.
was
Not sweet.
not at all.
It left a bad taste
Not
in
at
your
all.
mouth with Chicago in general, or?
Unfortunately, it really did. And I have learned to forgive Chicago for that, because it's not the city's fault. But at the time,
Thank you very much.
at the
Thank you very much.
time, yeah, don't worry. I have no beef with Chicago anymore. But at the time, it really felt like I don't know. Chicago wasn't the right place for me to live for so many reasons. And the fact that I jumped in because I had this job that just basically let me hang out and be in college part two for another year really just made me feel like I was stunted and not challenged and not doing what I wanted to do. And so Chicago in my mind has been just a reflection of a time where I was unhappy, but it has nothing to do with the city. And I still have so many friends who live there, and I love to visit when it's not freezing because then it's brutal. But but I mean, I stuck it out. I went to Michigan State, so I love being in the Midwest, and I love the Midwest culture and the people there. And everyone was so kind and lovely. It's an awesome city. Like it's
There
so
you go.
great. It's beautiful. You have the beach and the city, but in the summer, it's the most beautiful weather because in New York City, it's too hot in the summer, but in Chicago, it's like perfect. And I loved it after I was able to separate those from it. But yeah, I had a bad experience in Chicago when I was living there, but I don't hold it against it.
All right.
Word.
That's fair enough.
That's a good way to endear yourself to us moving forward. That's what's up. That's what's up.
Okay.
Let's get into some fun questions. We like to have a few fun questions, and I'm going to open it up with a classic that we like to ask a lot of people, but it's important because the man needs help. You are a fashion queen, I will say. Every time I
Thank
see
you.
you, I saw you in LA in January, every outfit on point. And say what you will about the long sleeves not showing off the tattoos. You're still doing that thing over there, girl.
Yeah.
We need to sort out what's going on this side of the screen. Do we have any fashion tips that you could give to myself or Weekend Gabe, who has worn that same gray sweatshirt for the last 3 episodes?
This is my winter sweater.
That's honestly, it's like my dad. My dad has three things that he wears every day because he's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'm very simple when it comes to men's fashion. I really love like a guy in like something sleek and classic, like a tee, a
Mm,
white or a black tee, and jeans that aren't like baggy but not skin tight, or like classic like chino pants or
mhm.
trousers with maybe a t-shirt sweater with something, I don't know, very like European men's classic style,
Ooh,
and some nice loafers is
loafers. Ooh,
Loafers might be in your future, Gabe.
I,
Loafers
I, I,
might
I
be in
love
your future.
I
I
have to
do
take a
love a
look.
loafer on a man.
You heard it here first, folks. That is also a Weekend at Gabe's
Loafers.
exclusive.
Maybe for the summer. Maybe the summer Gabe look includes some loafers.
A summer Gabe loafer.
Yeah,
That might be a
there you
spin-off
go.
podcast.
Yes. I will produce that one too, Gabe. No worries at all, my friend. All right, let's keep it moving. Rendezvous obviously is a song, maybe not entirely, but at least partially about sneaky links. So, Nora Mae, do you have any sneaky link pro tips?
Oh, honestly, just like slide into anyone's DMs and see what happens. Like,
Wow, that's what it
I,
is. That's what's fresh in the streets.
Wow.
I think that is, it's how I've now heard of so many of my friends meeting people, even if nothing comes of it. It's just like dating apps are all, uh, I don't know, it's just like too obvious. There's no excitement to it. And if you're trying to get someone just a little bit intrigued and you think you could have a shot and you're not sure, whatever, just honestly slide into a DM, see what happens, keep it cool. Don't like screenshot it and post it all over the internet or show your friends. And that's the best way to maintain a sneaky link. I've never heard that term before, but
You've never
I
heard of the
really
sneaky
love
link
it.
before?
I've
Okay, fair
not.
enough.
This is
No,
new to me as well.
Okay,
I love
guys,
it.
make me feel weird on my own show. It's all good.
No, I love it. I'm adopting that, by the way. So thank you.
To define for anybody who may not know, sneaky link was a term that came up in COVID where people weren't allowed to go see each other, but you would still have a sneaky link, even though it was supposed to be quarantine. Whatever.
So funny.
Anyways,
Yeah,
let's get
yeah.
into
DM people.
my next question, Alicia Keys, who you mentioned frequently in a lot of the interviews. In fact, almost every interview mentions Alicia Keys. And my question is this, because me and Gabe were having a similar debate about this the other day. Songs in A minor or Diary of Alicia Keys?
Mm.
Probably
Mm.
songs in A minor.
Word. Is it a
It's a fun.
sentimental thing, or you really feel like the music is better?
Oh God, I don't know.
I mean, Fallen like just trumps everything.
I think it's I think
Yeah,
it's a mix. I think that the music, I mean, her music, she's so good. Like, I think the music is good regardless, but I do think that there's probably a certain level of like nostalgia and sentimental. And like when I was trying to
sure.
like start singing the songs that I was mostly trying to literally just pretend I was Alicia Keys and mimic was more songs in A minor era.
Okay, word. That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Another
And
thing.
fun fact, I do love singing in A minor. So,
First off, all minor keys are great. There's not I've
of
not been a
course.
minor key yet that I've hated, and A minor is pretty good, but E minor is even better.
E
Um,
minor is a pretty good one too. I'll give you that.
Facts. I've heard you are also a sushi aficionado. You
Oh,
love sushi. Describe to us your perfect sushi roll.
Mm.
okay. So there is actually, I have a weirdly perfect answer for this. There is a place. It's so niche. I when I was in college, I had an internship at, I don't even know if the app is still going, but it was this app called Wine and Dine. It was a food app. It was basically Instagram and Yelp had a baby and it was its own app. So it was people would post user generated content of their food, but then also review the restaurant and the dishes. So you could see people's actual photos of what they ordered and then what they thought about it and then also like the ambiance, whatever. There was one of the guys who owned the company, who was one of my bosses at the time, had a role that was literally not on the menu, but he would ask for at Sushi Seki in New York City. There's a handful of locations, but I believe it was the Chelsea one in particular. And I would go to the Chelsea one and you would order, I think his name was Josh. You would say just like the Josh or the triple S roll. And it was spicy tuna, spicy salmon, and salmon skin
Mm.
hand roll. And for some reason, I would get it with a little eel sauce on the side, no soy sauce. For some reason, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever had in my life. It was perfect. It was just perfect.
That is a good answer. Do you still get out to that spot when you're in Chelsea, when you're in New York City?
I do sometimes. It's been a long time since I went to Sushi Seki. I mean, pre-COVID for sure, but I would definitely go back. It's gonna happen soon. If not in the next few weeks while I'm back home.
Word, word, word. And finally, our interns actually came up with this question, so shout out to Karina wherever
Ooh,
she's at. But what you mentioned in another interview that your music is sort of a cocktail, and you go into that's a great metaphor, but you don't really expand on what the cocktail is. So, Nora Mae, what cocktail are you? That's the first part. There's a second part to this question as well.
okay. Cocktail am I? Honestly, I think Nora Mae as a cocktail, like a real cocktail, like what do I feel like symbolizes Nora Mae as a cocktail? Goddamn.
Yes.
Probably what I just ordered. Oh, it's either damn. It's one of two things because there's two sides to Nora Mae, I guess. It's one of two things. It's either what I ordered on Thursday when the song came out because I felt like it was perfect for it, which was a filthy dirty gin martini. Like the dirtier the better. The less gin, the more olive juice and olives, the better. And so that feels like, her and classy and classic, but a little, mysterious and cloudy, but also like an old fashioned or a Manhattan. Anything with a whiskey or a smokiness is very me. Um, yeah, those would be my cocktails.
Okay, that's a good answer. And final question of the night. What cocktail is the song Rendezvous?
I would never drink this, but Rendezvous, but I'm aware of that. Rendezvous is an ice cold vodka martini straight up with a twist.
That's my dad's order. God, that's why.
That's awesome. That is funny. Yeah, that's what I think that it would be. Crisp, classy. You could have that in the summer or the spring. Nothing too, it's just strong. It's just like that's strong, but it's summery and playful, but like bold.
I love it. I love it.
All right. I have one last fun question, and we'll get out of here for real. I heard that you're terrified about the internet, which probably explains why your Twitter has been absent for some time. Has that fear been erased? Because we also know that you like social media. So where's the balance at?
It's a really crazy balance. It's a weird line to toe. I am terrified of the internet. One, because obviously we live in a time where you can't say the wrong thing. Not that anyone should say the wrong thing if it's wrong, but like you're constantly afraid of saying something that's wrong, that either is taken out of context or that you didn't mean or intend in a certain way. So I'm always just afraid of things being, taken out of context. But I do think that so much of social media is so useful, obviously building an audience, building a brand, meeting people, getting to express yourself and develop an aesthetic. Like the things that you guys were able to pick up about me and my artistry just from my appearance on social media is such a fun thing for me to do from a creative aspect. So it's really a weird line to toe. I'm still terrified of it. I also think that especially for young kids, like my little brother and sister are 16, and I mean, just all of their friends are, addicted to social media, and they are. And having the comparisons is also really dangerous that I feel like our generation didn't have to deal with nearly as much. And so I'm afraid of it in a lot of ways, but I think there's more good than bad that comes out of it in general.
Yeah.
But it's just being able to balance it, and I am hopefully found a way to do that. But it's gonna be a whole learning process. It's gonna keep, some days it's good, some days it's bad. So whatever it is.
All right. Well, all right. Well, Nora Mae, thank you so much for joining us here on Weekend at Gabe's. New single Rendezvous is on all digital streaming platforms. Go run those numbers up. It's a fantastic single. We can't wait to see the video. I know it's going to be amazing. Well, when you guys put that out, and the new EP as well, Moonchild, is going to be out soon. So love it. Thank you again for coming by. We hope to see you in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for having me. This is such a blast. What a way to spend a Tuesday night.
Hey man.
Exactly.
Every Tuesday and Thursday on Twitch. You can find us right here.
I love it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye guys.
All right. Nora Mae joining us on Weekend at Gabe. Closing this out tonight. I love it.
And what man, I'm not sure what to say that we did so much in that interview, and I think we did a good job of painting a full picture of the woman. So that's amazing.
What I love is that we really went into this conversation not trying to hammer down on her grandmother, but I think when she answered your question about her not being sort of offended or thrown off by all the questions, that she really enjoys talking about her grandmother. And I think anyone who has that connection with their grandparents, it's something they're comfortable doing and sharing that. And so I was really kind of surprised by that a little bit. But she also kind of mentioned that, and I think something we mentioned in our pre-production meeting was that are people really focusing on her because of her or because of her grandmother? And she was even hinted at sort of like, I would be disappointed that people.
There is a line there, right? Like there is a line there. But there shouldn't be, because she stands on her own, and
she's fantastic.
And she's absolutely fantastic. The attention to detail, and even meeting her in person it's just a pleasure to be in and around the lunar gravitational pull of Nora Mae, and that's where I'll leave it.
Exactly. So yes, thank you to Nora Mae for joining us.
Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe. Thanks for checking out this latest episode of Weekend at Gabe's. Click on any of the links swirling around my head and also hit the subscribe button while you're here. Thanks for checking out us here on YouTube.